وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الغر الميامين. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. قال تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. One of the main sufferings of the humanity today is the violations of human rights, which is a widespread phenomena. It is found almost in every country, in every society, but with some difference. And this type of violation existed since the existence of man on earth. I guess the first person who violated human rights was Cain, who murdered his sibling and his brother Abel. That was the very first act of violation against human rights. And from that date and that day, these violations continue to happen, sometimes resulting in mass murder of big number of innocent people, of women and children and men and civilians, sometimes by a foreign enemy and sometimes by a domestic enemy, sometimes by the ruler, the president, the government of the country. 60 years ago, almost 60 years ago, the international community gathered to draft the Human Rights Charter. The Human Rights Charter, 60 years ago, preserving, protecting, and emphasizing the human rights, and trying to defend it and trying to save the dignity of the people, regardless of their faith, regardless of their gender, regardless of their political orientation. But imagine and see for yourself what is happening. Since that date, in 1948, here in America, when the Human Rights Charter was drafted and issued and proclaimed, we did not see any reforms. We did not see that these violations have been reduced. I would say it did not reduce the violations, but from that date onward we are seeing the increase, the increase in the human rights violation. For one reason. The reason is very obvious. Those who drafted the Human Rights Charter, maybe they had good spirit and good intention. Maybe they were sincere in their work. But the body that upholds the law and executes the law failed in implementing the values and the principles of the Human Rights Charter. Because governments were supposed to implement this. And unfortunately, governments failed miserably to uphold the principles of a Human Rights Charter. Look at the Security Council today. Security Council today is the top, the highest body, entity, to protect your rights and my rights and everybody else's rights. And look at what is happening within the Security Council. Most of these violations of human rights and conflicts, they come from countries who are sometimes permanent members of the Security Council. And that shows to us that if the work is not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the work does not come from a servant that sees himself accountable only before God, that work cannot succeed. And that work does not give fruit. نقض حقوق بشر. شما دارید میبینید عزیزان، عرض کردم 60 سال پیش دولت ها، ممالک جمع شدن و بیانیه حقوق بشر رو صادر کردن برای دفاع از حقوق بشر. ولی از اون روز تا حالا ندیدیم که نقض حقوق بشر و این کشت و کشاری که داریم میبینیم، مخصوصا این تلفاتی که میبینیم در بین کودکان، افراد بیگناه، زن و کودک و پیرمرد و پیرزن و افراد فقیر، افراد بیگناه، افرادی که در مسائل سیاسی هم دخالت نمی کنن، در کل دنیا، نمیگم فقط در فلسطین و اینها، در کل دنیا این جنایت های وحشتناک از بین نرفت. نه فقط از بین نرفت بلکه بیشتر شد. Today and tonight we are commemorating the martyrdom of the fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zain al-Abideen alayhi salatu wassalam. And when we commemorate this Imam, our talk is related, the human rights is related to this Imam. Because this Imam over 1300 years ago, he drafted the true charter, Risalatul Huquq, the treatise on the rights. Risalatul Huquq is the very famous work of Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam. Among many of his contributions to the humanity, to Islam and the humanity, is this Risalatul Huquq. And I advise you to go and do more research on this if you have time, if you want to learn about the contribution of Ahlul Bayt to Islam, in particular this fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein. Go and read about Risalatul Huquq, the treatise on the rights, over 1300 years ago. Imam Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam spoke about the human rights. Not only one or two rights. Imam Zain al-Abideen says, you as a citizen of God's kingdom, regardless of who you are, regardless of your faith, you have 50 responsibilities, 50 rights. Imam alayhi salam bring them to 50, beginning with the right of yourself upon yourself. Yourself, your nafs, has right upon yourself, huquq. Then begins with your spouse, either your husband or your wife. Then your children. Then your parents. The right of your father upon you. The right of your mother upon you. The right of your brother upon you. Then goes to the neighbor. The neighbor has rights upon you. You cannot say, I'm living by myself. I don't care who my neighbor is. And I don't want to see him. I don't want to establish a relationship with him. The neighbor has rights on you. Then speaks about the right of your leader, political leader, has rights on you. And then speaks about the right of the subjects on their political leaders. The subjects, they have rights. on their leaders. And interestingly enough, Imam alayhi salam not only speaks about the right of your friend upon you, he speaks about the right of your adversary, your enemy, even your enemy. Imagine, your enemy. He has rights upon you. And he tells, he speaks, he details, puts that in details. What is the right of my enemy upon me? I disagree with him, and maybe I am at war with my enemy. But still, my enemy is not, it should not be considered as a free zone for me to go and annihilate him and completely destroy him. The enemy has rights. There are rules of engagements, even with our own enemies. One of them was announced today in the White House in the morning, when the president, he signed a declaration or a law prohibiting what? Torture. Today, 21st century, America, we are in the year 2009 in America. Today, the president signs the law that prohibits torture. And Imam Zain al-Abideen spoke about this 1300 years ago in the city of Medina, where there no communication, mass communication, there were no technology, there were no science at that time, there were no electricity at that time. Imam Zain al-Abideen outlines in his Risalat al-Huquq that with your enemy you have no right to torture your enemy, even if you are engaged in combat. And if you capture your enemy, you have no right to torture him, to force him to admit or confess through torture. These are not the values and the principles of Islam and the humanity. امام چهارم میفرمایند در رساله حقوق یکی از مهمترین کارهایی که امام انجام دادن رساله حقوقه. یکیش اولا امام دارن دعاهای مکارم اخلاق، دعاهای بسیار عظیمی است، پر محتوا. اگر وقتی فرصت پیدا کردید دعاها هستش به زبانهای مختلف دنیا، زنده دنیا هم ترجمه شده. یه نگاهی کنید به این دعاهای امام، دعاهای مکارم اخلاق. بعداً رساله حقوق، امام میفرمایند 50 نفر در زندگی شما بر شما حق دارن. 50 نفر. شروع میکنن از خود نفس خود. نفس خودتون بر شما عزیزان حق دارد، مواظب نفس خودتون باشید. بعداً میفرماید اونایی که با شما زندگی میکنن، همسر شما، فرزندان شما، برادران شما، همسایه شما، فرمانده شما، اون کسی که شما نزدش کار میکنید، اون کسی که زیر دست شما کار میکند، اگر برده‌ای دارید در خونه برای شما داره کار میکنه، اینها بر شما حق دارن. حتی امام میفرمایند دشمن شما هم بر شما حق دارد. ای مردم، حق دارد. Therefore, the violations, and before we go into these rights, and I explain them briefly to you, we go over a few rights to learn from Ahlul Bayt. Azizan, we are here to learn from our Imams. To learn. What does it mean? What does it mean to me to commemorate my fourth Imam's martyrdom? What does it mean? It means a lot. It means that he's a source of inspiration for me. He's a source of teaching for me. And I come here to see what this Imam, what did he tell me, what he's trying to make me understand and adhere to. These violations, brothers and sisters, violations of human rights, any violation, sometimes a husband against his wife, or the wife, she violates her husband's rights. Sometimes the father violates his son's right. Sometimes the daughter violates and encroaches upon her mother's right. Sometimes two neighbors, sometimes two partners, sometimes two friends. Why does this happen? It happens for one. There is one answer here. One answer here. And the answer is when personal interests override and overrun the collective interests. Personal interests. I put my personal interest first before my family's interest. Or I put my family's interest before my community's interest. Or I put my community's interest before the society, the larger society's interest. This is the reason. When personal gains and personal profits and personal interests, they override universal interests. What is the problem with America, brothers and sisters? America has a big problem. You heard what Obama said. Obama 2 days ago in his inauguration, he said now the remaking of America. He used this phrase, remaking of America has started. Why remaking? America has been living now, existing for over 200 years. Over 200 years. America was discovered 500 years ago. And now America is active, existing as a political entity more than 200 years. Why remaking America? You know why? In one sentence. Because America puts its own interest above the interest of the humanity, above the universal interest of people. Are you with me? When America puts its own political interest first, and it makes its own political interest overrides and overrun people's interest, this is what happens. They both are going to lose. America is going to lose, and the whole of humanity is going to lose. We have no winners here. The winner is the shaitan. Neither America is going to gain, nor the rest of the world community. This is why he says we are remaking America. Today, Hillary Clinton, may Allah bless her, inshallah, and help her in her task. She said, today we're going to open a new chapter in America's relations with the whole world. What does that mean? It means that her predecessor, for how many years? 4 years, 8 years, 16 years, 20 years, they ruined America's relationship with the whole world, except with one country. This is the reality. Why? Because when we put our own interest, regardless of whether we are right or wrong, regardless, we put it first, then we are going to achieve nothing. We are going to lose and others are going to lose. Imam Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam says, look, before you look at your own interest first, at the same time look at the interest of your wife, the interest of your husband, the interest of your neighbor, the interest of your friend, the interest of your employee, the interest of your parents. Look at their own interest too. Once we look at the interest and we try to strike a balance, nobody is going to lose here. Both are going to win, and we both are going to enjoy wonderful and peaceful and healthy relationship. Risalatul Huquq is a very important treatise, and I wish the political leaders and new political leaders in America, at the beginning of their responsibility, to pay attention. I don't say to what this book, the Quran, says. If they are sworn in on the Bible, if they pay attention to the Bible, we don't want them to pay attention to the Quran. Let them pay attention to the principles and the values of the Bible. Usually they sworn in on the Bible. Let them pay attention. Adhere to the teachings of the Bible. That would be enough. That would be enough. I think if political leaders in America, they adhere and they listen and play by the rules of their Bible, America is not going to wrong any person, neither inside America nor outside America. Because definitely the Bible and all the divine revelations are against oppression, against injustice, against usurping people's rights, against destroying people's dignity. But the problem is, we have ceremonies. We do ceremonies. We bring the Bible, old Bible from Lincoln's time, 150 years ago, and we put our hand on that. But unfortunately, the story is different. The story is different. Let's go through Imam Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam. Let's go through what he said. How to protect and maintain human rights. رسالة الحقوق. عزیزان، این رساله حقوق کتاب‌های زیادی درباره این رساله حقوق امام نوشته شده. سعی کنید این را بخوانید. 50 تا حق می‌فرمایند. از حق همسر تا حق پدر تا حق مادر، اینها بر ما حقوق دارن دیگه. حقوق دارن. ما نمیتونیم زندگی خوشی داشته باشیم، زندگی خالی از مشکلات، مگر حق این افراد را اولا ادا کنیم. عرض کردم ما چرا بین زن و شوهر یا پدر و پسر یا دو تا همسایه یا دو تا شریک یا دو تا رفیق، دو تا دوست 30 سال با همن، یه دفعه میبینین اینا از هم جدا شدن، رفتن، حق همدیگر رو حفظ نمی کنن. اگر حق همدیگر رو ادا کنن، مشکلی ما نداریم در جامعه. باور کنید مشکلی نداریم. امام میفرمایند در این رساله حقوق، میفرماید یه مقداری من تا اونجایی که وقت اجازه میده درباره این اولا شروع میکنن و اما حق امک. The most important thing begins with the right of your mother on you. Imam Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam says, فحق أمك أن تعلم أنها حملتك حيث لا يحمل أحد أحد. The first thing you have to know about your mother, the first thing that comes to your mind, not my mother cooks good food for me, or she cleans or washes my clothes. No, not because of that. She carried you in a place that no person is ready to carry you there at all. Ask any person today. Tell him you are, mashallah, muscular. You have good muscles, good body, bodybuilder. Carry me here for 2 hours. Put me here. Hang me here on your belly for 2 hours. See whether he's willing to do this. Nobody is willing. She carried you for 9 months. 9 months. Not 9 days, 9 months. Through ups and downs, through the nights and the days and sickness and health and traveling, and wherever she went, she carried you with her. She carried you, and nobody is ready to do this for you. Today we are not ready even to carry the luggage for someone else. We tell him, you take your luggage. I'm not your servant. But the mother did this to you. این یک حق بزرگی است. اول بدونید قدر. ما اگر قدر پدر و مادر و افراد دیگر رو ندونیم، نمیتونیم حقوق آنها را ادا کنیم. نمیتونیم. اول باید قدر مادر رو بشناسیم. چیه؟ مادر چه کار کرده برای ما؟ چه کار کرده؟ And then وَأَطْعَمَتْكَ مِنْ ثَمَرَةِ قَلْبِهَا مَا لَا يُطْعِمُ أَحَدٌ أَحَدًا. She gave you from the essence of her heart. The food that you ate while you were there, it came from her heart, from her body, from her blood. Nobody is willing to do this. She did this, something unique, something only the mother, your biological mother, can provide you with. وأنها وقتك بسمعها وبصرها وبيدها ورجلها وشعرها وبشرها وجميع جوارحها. And she safeguarded you and shielded you with her eyes, with her hearing. Sometimes she does not see you, but the moment she hears your voice, she rushes to you. The moment you say, I'm in pain, she rushes towards you. She can't sleep. Look at some mothers here with us now, when they carry the baby. Even when she goes to work, her body is at work, but her brain and her thoughts and her concern is at home with you, even if she's working outside the house. This is the mother. She protected you with all her limbs, with her mouth, with her ears, with her vision. She provided you the mustabshiratan fariha. Sometimes she did this, mustabshiratan fariha. Sometimes you work but reluctantly. You are forced to do this. You don't like it. But your mother, she does this with all her love. With all her love and her joy. All her love and joy. Sometimes, men, you know this story. You can share it with me. Sometimes you have kids and the mother changes the diaper. We can't stand the smell. Oh, please, move this. But the mother, she does that. She never said, oh, this is terrible. Never, never, ever. To her, it's not terrible. Yes, for somebody else, it's terrible. They can't stand it. But for the biological mother, she does this with full pleasure. With full pleasure. هرچی هم که خسته میشن، هرچی هم که زحمت میکشن، خدمت میکنن، نمیگن، مادر نمیگه من خسته شدم دیگه، نمیگه. مگر بچه ها قدر مادر رو نمیشناسن. روزی که قدر مادر رو نمیشناسن، بی احترامی میکنن، اون روز مادر صداش در میاد. اون روز میگه من امروز خسته شدم از دست این بچه ها، از رفتار این بچه ها. Then after that, let's go to the father, the right of your father upon you. حق پدر. What is the right of the father? وأما حق أبيك فأن تعلم أنه أصلك وأنت فرعه. Always, again, you have to conceive this in your mind. You have to conceive this. That your father is the origin and you are the branch of him. So when you have a conflict of ideas, do not stand tall and proud before your father and tell him you are wrong, I am right. Don't say this to your father. Your father is like the tree. Look at the tree. The tree has a trunk and then it has branches. Which is more important, the trunk or the branches? The trunk. پدر تو اصل است و تو فرع هستی از اون پدر. قد علم نکنید در برابر پدر به سن 15 سالگی، 17 سالگی، 20 سالگی برسی بیای به پدرت بگو که به تو چه؟ من نظرم اینه، من باید این کار انجام بدم. این حرفو نزنید. پدر اصل است و ما فرعیم. و انه لولاه لم تکن. If it wasn't for your father, you wouldn't have been here in existence. Thus, in Islam, parents have two rights upon us. Two rights. Two rights. If the father is a Muslim believer, he has two rights on you. If he's non-believer, you are a Muslim, good Muslim, but your father is an atheist, he still has one right upon you. You should respect him for that right. The right of existence. The right of making you and delivering you into this world. And this is mentioned in the Quran. You have to be grateful to them even if they are atheists, Allah says. Imagine, one's parents are atheists, non-Muslims. They do not practice Islam. They don't believe in God. Still the son and the daughter have to respect them because of their biological contribution. They made me. I came from them. However, if they are believers, then they're going to have double rights upon us. Double rights. You have to listen to them and obey them. Beside respect, it comes obedience. Respect and obedience. A lady comes to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. خانمی آمد خدمت پیغمبر فرمود ای پیامبر خدا من مسلمون شدم. مسلمون نبود، مسلمون شد، ولی مادرم مسلمان نیست. من چیکار کنم؟ ما در یک خانواده در یک خانه زندگی میکنیم، چیکار کنم؟ الان مادرم مسلمان نیست دیگه، خدا را قبول نداره. پیامبر فرمودن ای خانم برید و رفتار شما با مادرتون باید رفتار یک دختر با مادر مسلمان باشه. یعنی شما حساب کنید مادرتون مسلمونه، نگید که این مسلمان نیست. اون عاطفه‌ای که و احترام و عاطفه‌ای که نشون میدهید چنانچه این مادر یه فرد مسلمونه. بله اونا هم باید بیادشون باشن انشالله. اونایی هم که پدر و مادرشون از دار دنیا رفتن، باز هم حدیث میفرماید که باید حق پدر و مادر حتی بعد از مرگم باید ادا بشه. Even after they pass away, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, there is a hadith to this effect, that sometimes اسمعوا هذا الحديث, sometimes the son and the daughter are considered bar بأبيه وأمه, dutiful to their parents during their lifetime. But once they die and they take them to the cemetery, to the grave, that's it. That chapter is closed. They never think about them. They never recite Fatiha. They never give sadaqah or charity or food or help to people on their behalf. فيكتب الأب والابن يكتب عاقا بعد أن كان بارا بأبويه. Then the status will change. They will be considered undutiful because they forgot them even after their death. Your father is your father. As long as you live, he is your father, even after death. Your mother is your mother. Do not forget them. This relationship should not cease. Maybe physically the relationship ceases. You don't see them. But spiritually the relationship still exists. Even after death. They wait for your gift. They wait for your contribution. پیامبر اکرم میفرماید بعد از مرگ هیچ رابطه دیگه با دیگران نداریم مگر سه رابطه. از سه تا دریچه بعد از مرگ ما از سه تا دریچه هست. همه دریچه ها بسته میشه، همه درها بسته میشه. فقط از سه تا دریچه هنوز برای ما کمک میاد. یکی از این دریچه ها فرزند، حالا فرزند یا پسر یا دختر، و ولد صالح یدعو له، فرزند نیک و خوب که برای پدر و مادر کارهای خوب انجام میدهد و ثوابش برای پدر و مادر میرسد. Yes, be dutiful to your parents in their lifetime and after their death. So this is what Imam Zain al-Abideen says. Then let's go. I'm going very briefly through these. وَأَمَّا حَقُّ وَلَدِكَ, what is the right of my son and my daughter upon me? Listen, you parents, you have to listen to this. حق فرزند چیز عزیزان؟ حق فرزند فقط پول بدیم، برید خرید، برید هر چی که دلتون میخواد بخرید، همینه، تمام شد. من دیگه کار ندارم با این فرزند، با این دختر کار ندارم دیگه، من فقط پول میدم. بعضی از مادرها و پدرها شدن ATM ماشین شدن. هر وقت که بچه ها پول میخوان پدر مادر پول بده. اما شما کجا میرید؟ با کی هستید؟ زندگی چیه؟ آینده چیه؟ دینت، اخلاقت، رفتارت نمیدونن. باور کنید نمیدونن. و این بزرگترین اشتباه اینه. دیترویت که بودم یه خانمی اومد بعد از مجلس گفت دخترم 15 سالشه، باردار شده، حامله شده از بایفرند غیر مسلمون با یه دختر 15 ساله مسلمون. گفتم مادر من خیلی ناراحتم ولی این تقصیر شماست ها. همه تقصیر رو نندازید گردن اون دخترتون. پدرش کجاست؟ شما کجا بودید؟ وَأَمَّا حَقُّ وَلَدِكَ, the right of your son upon you, فَأَن تَعْلَمَ أَنَّهُ مِنْكَ, you have to keep in mind that this baby, this son, this daughter is part of you, part of you. What does it mean, part of me? Whatever befalls me, befalls him. Whatever befalls him or her, befalls me. I cannot stay away. If my son is in pain, I am in pain. If my daughter is happy, I should be happy. Reciprocal. So this is part of you. Do not, Allah does not say that deliver the baby and leave him by his own. Don't leave your kids by their own. Try to be a conscious parent, a conscious father, and a conscious and responsible mother. وَأَنَّكَ مَسْئُولٌ, Imam Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam says, you are responsible, you are accountable. وَأَنَّكَ مَسْئُولٌ عَمَّا وَلَّيْتَهُ, you are responsible. If he does good, you get the credit. If he does bad, you also will be held accountable. Don't say, I am tired. When it comes to responsibility, we work together. There is no sovereignty. Some people tell me, Sayyid, in America our kids are independent and sovereign. They act like a sovereign. I tell them this is wrong. Yes, give them their own space, give them some freedom, give them respect, trust them, but you have to monitor them. You have to monitor them. Don't spy on them, but monitor them. Ask them. Ask. Where are you? What do you do? What do you do? Where do you go? What do you study? Tell me about your friends, the food you eat, who do you hang out with? You have to ask these things. If you don't ask, you let them, they will assume that they are okay, whatever they do. My father is happy with me, alhamdulillah. He saw me with my boyfriend, he didn't say anything. Yes, this is what they're going to assume. Kids here are innocent. They only wait for a green signal from you, green light. So you have to be very careful. Very careful that you are responsible for them. And then Imam Zain al-Abideen says, alayhi salam, that when you help them to do good, you receive the credit. You're also going to receive the credit and the share of that goodness. Not only you are preparing them to be good citizens, you are at the same time sowing the seeds that they become good fathers and good mothers in the future. Good fathers and good mothers. Not only good citizens or good individuals. Prepare them for their marital life. Even if they are married, the job of the father and the mother here is to counsel their kids. To counsel them, sit with them, share your experience with them. Tell them, Daddy, I was this and I became this. I was like you, someone who's careless about this life. At some periods of my life, I was irresponsible, acting irresponsible. But then I learned from my mistakes. So I want to share my mistakes with you. What makes me strong and powerful and dignified? On the other hand, what makes me weak? Weak-spirited and defeated and failure. Tell them you have to sit with your kids. You have to sit with your kids. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam says, I wonder for that man who always think about what his kids eat, the food, and he's very keen on providing them healthy and good and delicious food. When you take them to the best restaurants. You don't let them eat junk food. But when it comes to the spiritual food, intellectual food, and mental food, we become careless. We don't care about that. We let them eat any junk food. و این کارها داره در این دنیا الان داره حاصل میشه. وقت غذاهای خوب برای بچه هامون میدهیم. اگر میدونیم این رستوران بدیه، نمیذارم فرزندم بره به اون رستوران، نمیذارم. ولی وقتی که غذای معنوی، نوبت به غذای معنوی میرسد، اصلا ما محل نمیدیم این بچهای ما روی اینترنت چیکار میکنن، چه کتابی میخونن، نمیدونه. اصلا پدر در یه عالم دیگری است، اسمشون اینا خانواده. پدر نمیدونه در یه دنیای دیگر، مادر یه دنیای دیگر، بچه ها هم خودشون الحمدلله از خدا میخوان دیگه، آزادی، مملکت آزادی. بعدم بیایید داستانهایی بشنوید اینجا، هر روز یه داستان عجیب و غریب داریم. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, the response, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I conclude with this hadith, that one of the rights of the sons and daughters upon their parents is وَأَنْ يُزَوِّجَهُ إِذَا كَبِرْ. Not just feeding them, not just only the education. Zawaj, marriage and family. You have to facilitate that, make it easy for them. Do not let them handle that by themselves. The whole family has to share in that. The Prophet says, مَنْ تَزَوَّجَ فَقَدْ أَحْرَزَ نِصْفَ دِينِهِ. When you are married, a right marriage, a healthy marriage, an Islamic marriage, a moral marriage, then half of your problems are eliminated. Half of them. Half of them. Believe me, in America, not only half, 80% of your problems are gone. But what we see is exactly the opposite. You get married, your problems are increased. They become double. Why? Because the marriage is not moral marriage, is not Islamic marriage. We do not consider Allah in our relationship. We consider our desires, only our desires. What I desire, what I love, what she loves, not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. This is the problem. Then we start having problems. But if the marriage is to satisfy Allah and us, of course, Allah and us, to put Allah first, to see if this individual is the right individual, Allah agrees with him before my father and my mother. Does Allah, if Allah looks at this individual, is he a good citizen? Or Allah does not want to see his face or her face? Which one? Then we try to establish the right family, the right foundation, based on healthy foundations. That marriage is going to be the most beautiful marriage. The most beautiful marriage. And this is the right of the parents. The rights of the parents. Today, I don't want to speak about people. These are confidential. I don't mention name. And I do some modification here so people do not. Someone came to me and said they are proposing to his daughter, but he does not want this guy and this guy. He wants only someone from his own village. Not even his own country, the village. نمیدونم غلام آباد، قنبل آباد، نمیدونم کجاست. میگه از اون شهر ما باید باشه. میگم عزیزم این حرفا چیه شما؟ ما الان داریم در یه دنیای زندگی میکنیم، دنیای بزرگ شده دیگه، شهر و کشور و اینا دیگه معنی نداره. شما ببینید اون کاراکتر اون آقا، شخصیت اون آقا، اول ببینید اون آدم انسان واقعی است. نگید از شهر ما. این چیه این حرفای؟ شما خانمتون از شهرتون نیست، خانمتون رفته یه خانم از یک کشور دیگری. ببینید تعصب. وقت این یه آقایی که تو آمریکا داره زندگی میکنه، اینجا 30 سال 40 سال اینجا داره زندگی میکنه. We have to see what is good for our kids, not to satisfy my ego. I love this country, I love this food, I love this family, then I force my kids. They are not going to do that. Be realistic, be realistic. Our circumstances are different. We got married 30 years ago, 40 years ago, in a different country, in a different culture. Islam is a very flexible religion. Islam says, listen, look, I love this phrase by Dr. Martin Luther King, and it was reiterated just 2 days ago by Obama, that we should not judge people by the color of their skin. We should judge people by the content of their character. Look at their character. If the character is good, he's a reasonable, he's a human being, he knows the meaning of respect, he appreciates the meaning of a trust, then whatever his color is, colors are not important in the eyes of Allah. Allah does not look at colors. Allah look at characters. إن الله لا ينظر حديث الحديث القدسي إن الله لا ينظر إلى صوركم وألوانكم. Allah does not look at your physical shape or facial expressions or your colors. وإنما ينظر إلى قلوبكم ونياتكم. Allah looks at our hearts and our intentions. We have to keep this in mind, that we have to help our kids in a healthy way, in a nice way, in a positive way, in a reasonable way, in an Islamic way. And this is what Imam Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam emphasizes in Risalat al-Huquq. Today was the 25th of Muharram al-Haram, the martyrdom of Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein, Zain al-Abideen, Sayyid al-Sajideen. Imam who was in Karbala with his father, and he saw with his own eyes the tragedy of Ashura, that massacre of Ashura. And his little son Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam was only 4 years old with the father. The only male survivor from the family of Imam Hussein was Imam Zain al-Abideen alayhi salam, who was probably 21 or 22 years old. And Imam was taken with his aunt Zainab alayhi salam and with the family of Imam Hussein to Kufa. Now the caravan left. Nowadays the caravan left Kufa going to Sham, to Syria, on the way. Now that I talk to you in these days of Muharram, the caravan of Imam Hussein heading from Kufa to Dimashq, to Sham. And Imam Zain al-Abideen stood in the session of Yazid ibn Muawiyah in Sham. Yazid claimed that those are non-Muslims. We captured them. We crushed their men. We took their women and kids captives. They were paraded in the markets and the streets of Damascus and brought in front of Yazid. Imam Zain al-Abideen stood there. He said, Ya Yazid, I want to say a few words. Yazid said, no, you have no right to speak. So the people who were sitting there, they said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. They say to Yazid, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, إذن له, give him permission. وَمَا قَدْرُ مَا يُحْسِنْ هَذَا الْغُلَامِ. This is only 21 years old. Are you afraid of a young boy? He said, no, you don't know who's he. I know. I know his father. I know his grandfather. إِنَّهُمْ مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتٍ قَدْ زُقُّ الْعِلْمَ زَقَّ. Those kids, don't look at his age, 21. Those, since they are infants, little babies, their parents, they give them the flow of the knowledge. زُقُّ الْعِلْمَ زَقَّ. He's very knowledgeable. Do not underestimate him. Imam Zain al-Abideen stood. After getting permission, people insisted on Yazid. He said, أيها الناس. This is just part of his khutbah. أيها الناس أعطينا ستا وفضلنا بسبع. We have given, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us 6 gifts, and He favored us by 7 traits or fadila. أعطينا ستا وفضلنا بسبع. أعطينا العلم والحلم والسماحة والفصاحة والشجاعة والمحبة في قلوب المؤمنين. We have been given ilm, knowledge. We have been given hilm, forbearance, discernment, insight. We have given samaha, tolerance. We are tolerant. We tolerate even our enemies. We have been given the fasaha, eloquence when we speak. We have been given the shaja'a, bravery. And we have been given mahabba fi qulub al-mu'mineen. The believers, the community of believers, they love us. They cherish us. Look at your heart now. Look at your heart. The distance between you and Imam Zain al-Abideen is more than 1300 years. But you still commemorate his martyrdom. He's in your heart. Today people, families, they name their kids after him. Sajjad and Zain al-Abideen. They named their kids after this great Imam. والمحبة. خداوند 6 خصلت به ما داد. یکیش از این خصلت ها خصلت ششمی محبت. مردم مؤمن ما را دوست دارن. ما نه پولی به مردم میدیم، نه غذایی میدیم، نه پروپاگاندا داریم، ولی مردمان خوب ما را دوست دارن. و فضلنا بأن من النبی المختار. We have 6 outstanding personalities in my family. Number 1, النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. ومنا الصديق. الصديق is the nickname of Amir al-Mu'mineen, which was given to him by Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا علي أنت الصديق الأكبر. ومنا الصديق ومنا الطيار. الطيار جعفر بن أبي طالب, the brother of Amir al-Mu'mineen. ومنا الطيار ومنا أسد الله وأسد رسوله. This is Hamza, سيد الشهداء, Hamza ibn عبد المطلب. ومنا سيدة نساء العالمين. And even the best lady in this universe belongs to us. She's my grandmother. ومنا سيدة نساء العالمين. ومنا سبطة هذه الأمة. سبطة دو تا فرزند پیامبر، اونا هم از ما هستن، اونم امام حسن و امام حسین. Those are the 2 grandchildren of Rasulullah. After that, Imam said to them, أيها الناس من عرفني فقد عرفني ومن لم يعرفني أنبأته بحسبي ونسبي. If you have recognized me now, you recognized. If not, let me tell you some more about my family and my heritage. أيها الناس أنا ابن مكة ومنى أنا ابن زمزم والصفا. I am not stranger. My family are deeply rooted in Mecca, in Mina, in Zamzam, in Safa. أنا ابن من حمل الركن بأطراف الرداء. أنا ابن خير من طاف وسعى. أنا ابن خير من حج ولبى. أنا ابن خير من حمل على البراق في الهوى. أنا ابن من أسري به من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى. أنا ابن من دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى. أنا ابن من صلى بملائكة السماء مثلا مثنى. He spoke about his grandfather Rasulullah, and then he turned to his father Amir al-Mu'mineen. أيها الناس أنا ابن علي المرتضى. أنا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. أنا ابن خديجة الكبرى. And then after that he wanted to be more specific, to introduce his father Imam Hussein. أيها الناس أنا ابن العطشان حتى قضى. أنا ابن الصريع بكربلاء. أنا ابن المحزوز رأسه من القفا. أنا ابن مسلوب العمامة والردى. أنا ابن من بكت عليه ملائكة السماء. أنا ابن من رأسه على السنان يهدى. يعني سر امام حسین، این سری که الان میبینید من فرزند این آقا هستم. أنا ابن من حرمه من العراق إلى الشام تسبى. At that time, Yazid did not know what to do. He asked the muazzin to go and raise the adhan. The muazzin said, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Imam Zain al-Abideen said, Wallah, shahida biha lahmi wa bashari wa dami. Every limb and every organ in my body, every cell in my body testifies this word, La ilaha illallah. Then the muazzin said, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Imam Zain al-Abideen turned to Yazid. He said to him, Ya Yazid, Muhammadun jadduka am jaddi? Is he your grandfather or my grandfather? If you say he's your grandfather, you are a liar. If you say he's my grandfather, why you killed my father Hussein? السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Please stay to recite زيارة وارث.